Our next case is Mr. Clyde Cummings. Mr. Cummings, if you would, please give us your full name and DOC number.
My name is Clyde Cummings, and my DOC number is 300884.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings, let me explain our procedure to you. First, we're going to do a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we'll allow those persons who wish to have any input to say whatever it is they like. We have a number of people here today on your behalf. Ms. Meredith Angle is your attorney. Is that you, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have Ms. Jessica Fuqua, who is with the
Ms. Chukwue is our intern as well. She's with Innocence Project New Orleans, and she's present.
Okay. She's not speaking. Is that right? Okay. Then we have Miss Cladell Whitehurst, who is not speaking. Then we have Miss Virginia White, who is with the Innocence Project of New Orleans, who will be speaking. Mary Lee Baker, who is here just for support. Jasmine Whitehurst, who is your sister, who will be speaking. Blanche Bailey, Keith Singletary, Terry Jackson, and your daughter, Portia Harris, are all here to give you moral support. After we have that interview, you will have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say to the board, and then your lawyer will have an opportunity to wrap up, then we'll vote. You understand how our procedure works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the matter of Clyde Cummings, DOC number 300884, date of birth, August the 25th of 1968. He's a fourth felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of October the 7th of 2023. He does not earn good time. He has a life sentence, and he was sentenced for possession with intent to distribute cocaine after having been adjudicated a habitual offender on February the 3rd of 2010. Mr. Cummings, is that basically information accurate?
Yes, it is.
Cummings, your case has been assigned to me to initiate our interview, so I'll begin the process. Mr. Cummings, how old are you, sir?
54.
How long have you been in prison on these charges?
About 14 years and 8 months.
Let's talk a little bit, Mr. Cummings, about you. How much education have you had?
I graduated high school.
Graduate high school before you came to prison?
Yes.
Okay. What year did you graduate high school?
1986.
Did you work while you were out?
Yes, I did.
What kind of work did you do back in 86? Let's talk a little bit about your early years. What kind of work did you do when you first got out of high school?
When I first got out of high school, I worked at Big O and Tires. I changed tires for close to about 2-3 years. But at the same time, I was working at UPS, and I was loading and unloading. They was training me to drive the trucks with a chauffeur's license.
When did you get into drugs?
I got into drugs when I moved to Louisiana after I left Oakland, California.
We're known for a lot of things. I guess drugs is one of them. So tell me how you got started in all of that.
Well, actually, I came to Louisiana for my mom. She was sickly.
And how old were you at the time?
At that time, I was probably close to 22, 23 years old. I was still young.
All right. So how'd you get involved in drugs?
Well, the elements that was around me at the time, that's all. Well, actually, old people that I grew up with, that's all they was doing was selling drugs. And at the time,
were you using drugs as well?
No, I never used drugs.
Have you ever used drugs at all?
No. Closest I ever got to using drugs is when the doctor prescribed them to me.
Medication.
Right.
Prescription medication. So you've never even tried marijuana or cocaine or anything like that? Why not?
Actually, watching the family members and friends, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
But yet you sold marijuana sold drugs for a long time.
Well, I sold drugs off and on, trying to make extra money while I was working.
Well, how often did you sell drugs? How many
Well,
years did you sell drugs? I mean, you and I both know you were arrested in 91, 92, 99, 2004, 2008. you're serving a life sentence for drugs.
Right.
So is it fair to say you've done this all your life? Since
Yeah,
you
it's
came-
fair. That's fair. That's very true, there, sir. To be honest with you, there was something that I tried and kept on trying and kept on trying, and apparently I ain't no good at it.
Well, it earned you a life sentence.
Right. It really did.
Well, you say you're not good at it and you got caught. What do you think the effect of your drug dealing has had on the individuals you sold drugs to?
Well, to be honest with you, since I've been here in Angola, I've been in a reintegration dome close to about 9 years before I got moved to the trustee dome. And that's a very intense thing that I had to go through, to face people that's, actually wanting the drugs, do anything for the drugs. And the way I'm trying to put it in a way that I never want to see me be the cause of somebody else being addicted to something that I ain't never tried and I would never try. But at the same time, I done learned to be a little patient and understanding, because I know it's just more than just the victim that I'm talking to. There's more victims involved than that, just the person that I was selling it to. So to be honest with you, Dad, I know I committed a lot of damage to the neighborhoods and my neighbors and families for a long, long time.
Mr. Cummings, in your 14 years and the 8 years where you've been now, have you given any thought to how many people may be dead as a result of your drug dealing?
If you would ask me that before I came to prison, no, I wouldn't have never gave any thought to it. But now I got a complete understanding.
Tell me a little bit about that.
But to be honest with you, I didn't watch people die from the stuff that, it's not the same stuff that I was selling on the street, but it's much worse now. And it's a hard feeling, man, just to see somebody just addicted to something that they can't control. And
Mr. Cummings,
like I said,
go
I'm
ahead.
getting tired of words, but I understand where you're trying to come to.
Well, let's talk a little bit. You've been in prison this time 14 years. You've been
Yeah.
arrested a number of other times. I mean, obviously you're a fourth felony offender. So tell me about the other times you've been in prison. How much other time have you served in prison altogether besides these 14 years?
Actually, the first time I did 3.5 years, it was like a cakewalk. They sent me to a park. I ain't gonna lie to you. It felt like I feel like I could do it again.
Sure, I understand.
And then the second time I went, I was in a detention center for about 18 months. All I was doing, locked up in the building, got fat, and came back home. So altogether, I might have did 5 years with
Have you
both.
had programs before coming to prison this time?
No, only program I ever did was when I was at Winfield. I did the culinary arts and horticulture, and which I just took the culinary arts because I like cooking. But the horticulture thing, it was just something that they just gave me.
Let's talk about some of the programs that you've taken while you've been in prison this time. Let's talk about programs specifically related to substance abuse, drug dealing, those kinds of things. What sort of programs have you taken that's given you some insight into what you have done to people and how you might not do that again? So tell me what you've learned in terms of what programs you've taken while you've been in prison.
Well,
Particularly with substance abuse. We're going to get into some of the other programs you've taken, but I'm more interested in your drug deal.
okay. On the substance abuse side, I took that in 2013. And they were showing me that, that the people I was dealing with was just not victims. There was other family victims. But if you don't mind, I'd like to add something else if it's okay with you.
Certainly, no, this is your interview. I want to know what you're thinking and what you've been through.
Okay, then. I was in Kairos. I don't know if you
I
know
am
what that
familiar
is.
with
Kairos.
Kairos.
Okay, and they had Kairos group meetings every Saturday. It's like 15 of us. We meet every Saturday. We've been doing this for about close to 7 years. And we talk about everything. I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything. And you know, you got brothers that's been addicted, and some probably still is addicted. They just don't want to say so. But one explained to me that when you're an addict, you're always an addict.
Right.
And the only thing that can help you is the person that's next to you, and the man himself. But the understanding that I got from him is what that I got to learn to take responsibility for the things that I do and the things that I plan. And saying that I don't understand why this person coming for this and this person want this here and why they don't want this here. It's not an excuse. So they taught me that instead of being in a little boy's mind, that I need to step up and be a man and take the responsibility for everything that I have. So over the years, I've been working on sacrificing this, sacrificing that. But when I say sacrifice, I mean that learning to deal with my brothers like they my brothers and not a token to stand up to do something for me for nothing. So in other words, I wouldn't do no more now for me, myself, that I wouldn't do for the next person. So in other words, I'm willing to sacrifice anything it takes to keep me afloat for my family and make sure that my family is straight. And I don't want them to never think that I'm gonna back up and go back to the same thing.
Tell me a little bit about your family. Your children,
I got 3 girls,
and how old are your daughters?
one 37, one 29, the other one 22.
You have a good relationship with them?
Well, I've been on a rocky road because I've been in and out of jail so much that really none of them really don't know me like know me. But my middle daughter, she been keeping up with me lately. You know, we just rebuilt our little relationship. I got to meet 3 of the grandbabies. And my oldest daughter, we was keeping up until I came to jail this time. So I lost contact with her by being here in Angola. And my youngest daughter, she really don't know me because when I left, she was like 5 or 6.
Tell me a little bit about some of the other things that you've done while you've been in prison. I understand that you did Tier Walker training. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, nurse's aid is a real challenge because you run across all kinds of different characters, even some that remind me of myself when I want something. And you got some that's psychotic, you got some that want to get more attention than they need. You even have some that try to hang themselves. If I don't know if it's on record, but I saved like 3. Actually, literally saved 3. And you know, most of them they say you're just supposed to walk the tier and pay attention. But it's more than that. You know, it's another human being that you're watching out for, and that you know that they mentally unstable most of the time. And it's
What other programs or what other things have you done similar to that, sort of helping out everyone else in the community there in prison? Anything else?
yes, I did I say hobby shopping. Well, I would say I worked in the hobby shop. It's very, you know, therapeutic. I just started messing with it when my mama died. And, you know, I really was on another page then because I felt like I had lost the world, you know. Now, but during the hobby shopping, I get to go to the rodeo and sell little personal items and stuff. But every year that they have United Way come through, you get a chance to give. And then, you know, the warden, you know, depends on who he is or who doing the thing. He asks you, do you have anything to give? And I love, you know, when I feel that somebody enjoys something that I've made personally with my hands. So I always try to offer more than I can. But for you,
Go ahead.
the next thing is, like I said, by being in the dome with the brothers in the reintegration dome, they're not able, to do for self most of the time. And by me doing the little rodeo, making the little money that they do, give us a chance to make. I normally give a little Christmas party every year for them. I did it for the last 3 years. So that was like, how you say, giving back. Even though I know I didn't have to do it, I do it. And I'm not trying to say something like, I'm able, but I'm not really able to do it, but I do it anyway.
Tell me what you would plan on doing when you get out. What kind of work would you do? A young man, or what kind of work would you do?
Well, my plan was with the help of
These ladies smiled when I said you're a young man. To me, you're a very young man. 64 years old is a young man. So
I like that.
What you intend on doing when you get out.
Yeah, I like that. Well, my plan is with the help of the Innocence Project of New Orleans is to try to get a CDL license, which I know that it would be very possible to, with them backing me up to, helping me going to get the grant and everything, and also get a vendor's license. So that way I could be able to sell some of the hovercraft that I be doing that I love to do now. And I feel that I could make a nice little route with.
Let's talk a little bit about your disciplinary records. How many write-ups have you had?
That's a good question. The last one I remember was 213.
What was that? Remember?
Yes, I do. It was very funny to me at the time. They wrote me up for walking too slow on the tip, not speedily moving.
How's your health?
My health is, if you ask me, I think I'm doing just fine, but I'm a borderline diabetic.
Your reentry plan is you have multiple reentry plans. Which do you prefer? You want to go to California?
I love to go to California and be with my daddy. My dad is stage 4 cancer, and I wasn't at home for my mom, and I like to be at home for my dad. Oh, and also I just found out yesterday that they granted the Interstate Compact if I get granted today.
It has been granted?
Yes.
It was granted? Okay. Wardens, can y'all tell us anything about Mr. Cummings?
You covered everything. I don't have anything that I can say about Mr. Cummings. I wish him the best if y'all grant him.
Mr. Cummings, you are a Class A trustee. How long have you been a Class A trustee?
Well, actually, I just made Class A trustee about 3 months ago. And I've been a Class B trustee going on close to about 3 years. Well, it's been 2 years and some months, but I'd say about 3 years.
And I noticed in your jacket, you have a number of faith-based programs. Tell me what those mean to you.
Well, the faith-based program is, like I said, that goes back with my Cairo brothers. We do everything pretty much together. But learning about Jesus was a wonderful thing because he was never part of my plan. But now that, since I've been dealing with the faith-based programs, I've learned a lot about giving, understanding, sacrifice. Sacrifice is one of the most, really, to be honest, which is the most hardest part I had to ever come around to sacrifice. Even though I've been sacrificing, messing with these drugs, I feel like now I could sacrifice for something more important. Learning my kids and my grandbabies. I really love to get a chance to hold my grandbabies.
I think that's all. Any other questions? Yeah. Now we'll hear from your supporters. We'll hear from, first we'll hear from Ms. Virginia White with the Innocence Project.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Virginia White. I'm the Client Services Specialist at the Innocence Project New Orleans. And In this role, I just provide a range of reentry support. And as Mr. Cummins stated, he's completed a lot of DOC programming in addition to his participation and dedication to the Cairo meetings once a week for the last 7 years, and also his daily hobby craft. And this has all aided in a holistic approach to his rehabilitation. The Cairo meetings seem to have helped him develop a lot of empathy for others. He just shared that he realizes the impacts of his actions on the victims, and he's connected that to a sense of understanding for what he did to the community and how it impacted the community by selling narcotics. He talks about those meetings as being the most transformative thing that he's been a part of in DOC, as he shared just now. Mr. Cummings' plan to relocate to California is something that we definitely will be able to continue supporting him with. He plans to live with his father, and he's maintained positive relationships and regular communication with his family. So he has brothers and sisters. His siblings are also in California. So there's a strong support system there, in addition to the continued support from IPNO Client Services. And we're equipped to continue the ongoing direct support while Mr. Cummings is living in California. And we've even established a plan for identifying local resources through community mapping in the area that he'll be living in. So throughout our communication with Mr. Cummings, we conducted a needs assessment plan to identify his long and short-term goals. So he plans to work with his brother while pursuing a CDL license, and he's devoted to his craftsmanship and painting. So he plans to build on these skills, and we've discussed the process for registering him for a vendor's license and even identified markets where he can sell his products in California. He has a very strong, solid reentry plan that has a lot of support from family and also from community resources involving IPNO. And we will maintain communication with Mr. Cummings to make sure that he's achieving the goals identified in his reentry plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. White. We appreciate your comments. Now we hear from your sister, Ms. Jasmine Whitehurst.
This is the only picture that I have with my brother. I was 9 years old. It's time to create some new memories. We miss him. He has a host of nieces, nephews, siblings, grandchildren he has never met, and we're just ready for him to come home. He has a really strong support system, and we're not gonna let him fail. He can't. He's worked too hard. He's doing great. He's helping others while he's in, and he's become a much better person. So I'm gonna keep it short, but we love him, and we're just ready for him to come home to be with his family.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehurst. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Cummings, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we turn it over to your attorney to close us out?
Yes, I just want to just say, man, thank y'all for allowing me to even have this chance. And before I came, it was just about hustling the wrong way, and not understanding. But by being inside, I understand that the victims and I'm aware of this here. And now all I want to do now is the chance at freedom, and not look back at these old behaviors and learn from them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummings. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Angelson?
Thank you. I'm Meredith Angle. I direct the Unjust Punishment Project at Innocence Project New Orleans. Mr. Cummings is a nonviolent lifer, and under Act 22, that means he's eligible for parole after 15 years. As he said, he's served 14 years and 8 months, and so he's actually coming before this board early. And I know this board tends to see people oftentimes when they're past their eligibility date, but they've been dogged by conduct issues. I just wanted to point out that Mr. Cummings has been doing great, and has been doing great for such a long time that he's here well in advance of his eligibility date. And with him, I think what you see is what you get. He's a very calm, steady, poised person has a wonderful mind, has a lot of maturity. And those are the traits that have really impacted the way that he has spent his time in prison. He spent his entire sentence at Camp D, which is a place where you often see people struggling. He, on the other hand, hasn't had a write-up in 10 years. He's been low risk for over a decade. He's made Class A recently, but had been a trustee, for I think about 5 years, 6 years before that. And he held the same job at Camp D for about 9 years until he was recently promoted into a more trusted assignment, cleaning security towers. A lot of that time he was also in the reintegration dorm. He's talked about how, the impact that had on him, but part of the reason he was kept there is because he was the positive influence on other people. He was the example to those folks who were coming out of the cell blocks, the people who were kind of having the most trouble and were, needing some stability. He was an example to them of what it looks like to be able to manage yourself in a chaotic situation, to stay calm, to do what you're supposed to do, to keep your job. He actually worked 2 jobs. And until he was moved to the trustee dorm, that is where he was. At the same time, he's never been idle, working multiple assignments and these Kairos meetings that have meant a lot to him. And I think from our conversations and what he's shared with the board, just pulled together the lessons from the DOC programming and actually been able to apply them in conversation and through relationships and help him process not just things like the loss of his mother, but also, understand his past behaviors and kind of manage himself in the present as well. And so he's engaged in this kind of multifaceted approach to his rehabilitation here, and I think it has really worked for him. He is very excited about California life. We were very excited to get the news yesterday about the Interstate Compact being granted. I think not returning to Shreveport, going to be with this part of his family opens up a lot of possibilities from him. You've heard about those. He's supported by them and his family, by his family, and also by Innocence Project New Orleans. And so we hope that this, his planned commitment to live differently than he had been living in the last 14 years of showing that he can live in a way where he's following all the rules, doing what he's supposed to be doing, being productive, should give this board confidence that he will succeed if he's released. And we hope that you will allow him that chance.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your comments.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings, in reviewing your record and in reviewing the information I had in your file, the things you've accomplished, and in reviewing the information the Innocence Project had submitted to us, I came in thinking that I might give you a favorable vote. Your interview confirmed that.
Thank you.
You appear to be very honest about what you were doing and what effect it has had on people. It's unfortunate that during all of the incarcerations and all of the time you had, you didn't have any other programs, but you finally got some programs, some good programs where you are. It appears to me that the system worked on you the way it's supposed to work. Programs there that help develop character and help develop people to understand what their wrongdoing has meant to other people. It seems like you've done that. So my vote today, based upon your prison record, 14 years that you've served, you are serving a life sentence. Not often does one get life sentence for drugs, but you got it. That's a life sentence. It's something that we have to deal with. It's a consideration that we have to take into account. You only served 14 years, but you have served those years well, and you've learned a lot of things. So my vote today would be based upon your low score, based upon the things that you've accomplished while you've been in prison, is to grant your parole to ICOTS to California under the guidance of the Innocence Project of New Orleans. I would anticipate that they would stay with you for at least a year to make sure that you do those things, and then to abide by all of the rules of your parole officer there. I'm just one of 3 votes, but that's my vote. Mr. Russia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Cummins. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. You had a real good interview. As your attorney said, you're a very calm individual, deliberate, and I enjoyed listening to you. Mr. Cummings, based on criteria set forth by Act 122 of the Louisiana Revised Statutes, I've looked things that would stop me from granting. But based on your improved disciplinary conduct, you had a disciplinary write-up in 10 years, I think. Good programs, good family support, a good interview. The supervision history is okay, and you have a low risk assessment. Based on all those factors, I grant your release under one condition, that it be to California, and you have a good visit with your father.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to put some conditions on that supervision. First of all, you have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you are to do community service with at-risk youth. You have a story to tell. I want you to tell that story, and I want you to lead the young people in the right direction. Okay?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Rusher, thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Cummings, you know, I sit here and I do agree with my colleagues. I think you're a changed person. One thing you got to remember, you're back in life. So if you get out there and violate parole, there's probably not going to be much hope for ever being granted again. So take full advantage of this. You have a great family. They're all going to support you. Innocence Project, you know, you have what it takes, but you got to do it yourself. So my vote is also to grant.
You have 3 votes to grant, and those votes are to ICOT in California with supervision by the Innocence Project, and certain conditions being that you'll have a curfew of 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and do community service work, hopefully with at-risk youth 4 hours a month. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations.